Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this last day of this week. Tomorrow we're going to be reading Lech Lecha, beginning the adventures of Abraham. But first of all, let's give charity. Let us give charity. Here we go. 1 second. Just like this and like this. There we go. And charity. Oh, here we go. Charity. Here's the charity box. Here's the money. Charity saves from death. Charity saves from all bad things. Charity brings the geula, and it brings all good things. Let us give thanks to the creator of the universe, like King David did. Thank you, God, for creating us and for enlivening us and for giving us the sense to know what to do and the responsibility and giving us the Torah. Wow, it was a big gift, taking us out of Egypt. Incredible. Okay, now we are here and we are alive and we have responsibility and we have the Torah. So let's learn the Torah. Let's see exactly where we got up to last time, just so that I remember where we got up to last time. Here we go. One moment. No, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. Excuse me for the delay. Yeah. All right, so we're very good. So we're learning about Abraham and how Abraham was the first Jew because he prepared the world for Torah and commandments. Yes, we're going to talk about that. He prepared the world for Torah and the commandments. So let's see what we got up to here. We got up to here. He prepared the world for Torah and commandments, and he also prepared the world for the land of Israel, which the land of Israel is equivalent to the commandments. The Torah was given on Mount Sinai, and the Jews entered into the land of Israel with Joshua 40 years after they received the Torah. They wandered around in the desert for, well, actually it was 39 years because it took them, and they didn't receive the Torah immediately when they left Egypt. So, I'm sorry, yeah, that's right. So it was like about 39 years, something like that, because they received the Torah and like 50 days after they got out of Egypt, and then Moses broke the tablets 40 days after that, and they only received the second tablets like 120 days after God spoke to them at Sinai, because Moses went up for 40 days and he broke the tablets. And so that already takes us into like 200 days, something like that. So that's the better part of a year. In any case, 40 years after they got out of Egypt, they got into the land of Israel with the Torah. What was the purpose of bringing them into the Jews? Didn't want to go into Israel. They wanted to stay in the desert. Whatever Moses wanted, the Jews disagreed. Moses said, let's leave Egypt. We don't want to leave Egypt. Let's receive the Torah. Let's go back. Let's cross even when they got to the Yam Suf, right? They got to the splitting of the Red Sea. The Jews said, let's go back to Egypt. They were always rebellion. Finally, they got up to the borders of Israel and they said, we don't want to go. We don't want to go in. And then afterwards, Moses said, you got to go in. And then all of a sudden, Korach stood up and he said, let's make a rebellion against Moses and we'll go back. The Jews, whatever Moses said to do, pretty much everybody disagreed with. And this was a general indication of what Moshiach is going to be. Moshiach is going to be like Moses, that he's going to go against the natural tendencies of the Jewish people. But so why force them to do this? Because inside of these natural tendencies, which that's true of the whole world, is pure good, pure truth, pure life inside. And the Jews are a lesson to the whole world that don't take things at face value now. But after you realize your true essence and the true essence of the world, then you can see that face value of the world is really very, very good. Right? The problem is what we do with it. So money, for instance, is money bad? Well, if you use it for selfish purposes, then the ends justify the means. If the only way you want is money and that's all you want, you live this external life. So anything you do, there's nothing wrong with murder or anything, because there's no humanity. There's no instance. But if your person really is devoted to the Creator, there can nothing better than money. You use money to build buildings. You need money to benefit people, to give charity, or we give charity. That's just an example. So this world essentially is very, very good. And when the Jewish people received the Torah, they learned the formula how to make this world good. And when they got to the land of Israel, then they could implement this formula and start making the physical world good. That's why the Jewish people have these things called commandments. No other religion has commandments. Commandments are taking physical items in this world and making them holy. The goal of Judaism is not to go to heaven, that we definitely believe in heaven. That's not the goal. It's not even mentioned in the 5 books of Moses. How to make this world holy. So that's what Hasidut Chabad is talking about. I mean, the majority, if not all, of the religious Jews, they want to go to heaven. But Chabad is how do you want to call it? Ideally, not concerned with that. Which I think pretty much all the Chabad Hasidim have that somehow or other implanted in them, that maybe deep down they want to go to heaven. But heaven is definitely not the goal. Heaven is that the goal is to make this world perfect. Okay, so how are we going to do this? There's one of the teachings and Abraham began that. Abraham was the first person to realize that. Right? There were other tzaddikim before Abraham, but they didn't realize this big secret of how precious this world is and how it is necessary to try to convince everyone in the world of this, this fact, that this physical world is essentially very, very good. The Tov Me'od, it says. Which, I mean, God said it at the end of the 6 days. God said it. Okay, one of the teachings, Bapoil, what actually we should do about what this should bring us to. So that Abraham, by means of his work, that God promised him in the beginning what was going to be in the end. What's going to be in the end? That the Jewish people are going to receive the land of Israel, the total land of Israel, which we have never gotten yet. Even Joshua, he only received 7 of the 10 lands, the 10 kingdoms, whatever, that God promised to Abraham in this week's Torah portion. God promised him the 10 lands, 10, and he only gave him 7. It says those 7, that corresponds to the 7 emotional emotional attributes of man and of God. They're revealed, which are basically serving God from enthusiasm, etc. But when we get the 10 lands, that'll add the top to the 10 top Chachma Bina Dat. We'll have a new awareness of God, a new appreciation of God, a new appreciation of God. I gave you the whole example yesterday about, you find a portrait, say, well, this is really a nice picture. And somebody says, where'd you get that picture? Well, that's a genuine Rembrandt. That thing is worth at least $500 million. At least $500 million. Where did you get that picture? All of a sudden, you liked the picture before. You liked it before. It was a nice picture. But now, all of a sudden, ooh. The same thing is with the world. Now, we think about God. God is good. God is creating the world. It's like finding something that's very, very nice, a nice picture. But as soon as Moshiach comes, he'll open up our mind to realize what really this world is and how precious this world is to God. Every detail. More precious than a Rembrandt picture. Every detail, every stone, every ant. Everything. It'll be just the world will be filled with the knowledge of God, like water fills the ocean. And when water fills the ocean, so it makes even the highest, most valuable, precious, holy, godly things, right, equal to the lowest. The ocean covers everything equally. Same thing, we'll see godliness is equal everywhere. Well, I can't really explain what it's going to be because I don't know myself. I just know that's what's written in the books. But it's going to be, for sure. And Abraham began that. Abraham was promised the 10 lands, implying not just the 7 emotional attributes of the human personality, but even the upper 3, which are called intellect. We'll have a new intellect, a new awareness, a new appreciation. And that, of course, will bring us to, that's the whole idea of the temple and the holy temple. People would go to the holy temple 3 times a year, and it would make them happy because they would feel that they're being created. I mean, we are being created. You feel it? I personally do not feel it. But if you think about it, You think, "Mom, I'm being created every moment." That's pretty freaky. That's pretty weird. To think about that. That's really the way you start to pray in the morning. We pray in the morning prayer. Start to think about it. That's what King David felt. Read the Psalms, you'll see that it's permeated with this idea that God is creating us, and God, you're creating me, you're creating the world. Why don't you help me? Why do I have all these troubles? Read King David. Okay. One of the teachings, Bapoel, actually, and what we said before, to every single Jew, we have an obligation. Where's this? Here we go. Let's get the pointer. Every single Jew has an obligation. Of moving, being constantly progressing, doing more and more, never being satisfied with where you are spiritually. You always have to do more, belimud Torah, and learning the Torah. Because we don't really appreciate the true essence of what the Torah is, just like we don't appreciate the world. When Moshiach comes, we'll feel the godliness of the Torah, but nevertheless, in the Torah, you can feel a little more godliness than in the world. Godliness. We're not talking about beauty or harmony or splendor, all these things, but you can also feel that in the world for sure. A beautiful sunset, that's wonderful. But the words of the Torah, if you start thinking about it for a minute, you think, this is God? What's this got to do with God? A beautiful sunset. Oh, that's God, right? You see a flower, a baby cry, a baby's eyes, whatever. Oh, now you see it, a big miracle, right? Somebody comes back from a disaster, he's untouched. A miraculous. So that's a miracle. But you look at a few words in the Bible, it's like every other book. What's good? But if you start to think, one second, I'm really supposed to believe that this comes from God? This comes from God. Suddenly, if you really start to think about this, you start to realize, hey, God is not what I thought he was. If you see a beautiful sunset, you realize, wow, how do you say only God can make a tree? You look at that, oh, this is really amazing. This is, right? You start to see a little bit of a something. Really, I can't create a tree, but the words of the Torah, I can create those. What's the problem? Right? There's poets, there's authors. You start to think, once again, these are written by God. Does that make any sense? You start to understand that, wow, the tree is not just the beauty of the tree and the beauty of the sunset. God is actually creating the tree, and he's creating it for a purpose. And this Torah is telling us what the purpose is. You have to really start to think. I mean, if it's true, then it's a knockout. It's amazing. If it's not true, so it's not true. Who knows? But if it is true, this is really something else. These words are really what God is saying right now. So when you learn the Torah, the idea is not just to sit and say, wow, this is amazing, but to understand. Ideally, you're supposed to understand, right? And especially in the Talmud. So you're supposed to learn more and more. This is especially learning the Talmud, the Chadesh, but this is talking about the Jews. Non-Jews are not supposed to learn the Talmud. Non-Jews are supposed to know that the Torah is, and you're supposed to know what the Torah says as far as they are concerned. To love God, to serve God, to love your fellow man, to be honest, to be truthful, not to kill, not to steal, all the implications from all these 7 Noahide commandments. They say there's also 30 positive commandments. The Noahide commandments are prohibitions, and they say there's 30 positive commandments also, right? To pray, to give charity. They're not really commandments. They're more like instructions on how to live the way God wants you to. Even if a Jew learned the whole Torah. The Torah is for the Jews. I know we've said this a lot of times, but I have to say it again. That God chose us Jews. We say this blessing every morning. God chose the Jews from all of the other nations, and he gave us the Torah. I know it sounds a bit chauvinistic, but what can I do? I didn't create the world. That's the way God created it. Therefore, we always have to increase in learning the Torah. In a way that we even find new ideas in the Torah. Because the Torah is unlimited. It's longer than the sea. And I told you yesterday a little hint. You read the Torah, and as soon as it pops up in your mind, and you try to understand it, and as soon as it pops up in your mind, the question, one second, this doesn't make any sense. Why does it say over here like this, and why does it say over there, right? One second, how old was Abraham when he when he circumcised himself, I thought he was circumcised before God spoke to him. You got a question, right? It's a good question. Then you start to look in the explanations. What did you see? Oh, other people had the same question. Or you start to look at a history book a little bit and you see, oh, it's not a question at all. I see Abraham circumcised himself when he was 99. And this, you got the. But the main thing is when you learn the Torah, you're supposed to have questions. Judaism is based on questions. It's not based on answers. But it's a good thing to have questions. It means that you're interested. You want to find out the answer. A lot of times you realize that you can't find the answer. How did God create the world? Right? But if you look in Kabbalistic books, you see a little bit. There's a book called Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation. It talks about how God used the 22 letters and the alphabet. You understand what that means. But nevertheless, here it is. Right? There's what to ask questions about. And then when you start asking questions, then you start looking for the answers. And that's what's called increasing Torah. That's the whole Talmud is just questions and answers. Not the whole Talmud, but let's say 70% of it. But Yotam can even more. Because this is the wisdom of God, Hari calling you in Torah, that everything in the Torah itself gives the power to give birth to new ideas, infinite. Halicha b'chirush zeh, and this idea of increasing and renewing ideas in the Torah, yitach, and it could be in many ways. Halicha b'chirush shebe'erech, there can be learning and asking questions, which are, how do you say, what's the word to call it? There's a word for it. Gradual, graded one. Each level is comparable to the level before it. And this, there's also many different levels, right? Like children learn in school. So they have, you learn first of all Aleph and then base, and then you learn how to read the Chumash. You read this little by little, right? That's the idea of Lech Lecha, but always increasing. That's going from the land that I showed you. That's like what Abraham started, increasing all the time, moving. Lech Lecha, go to the land that I showed you. This is the should be not just you should increase just in a sort of a normal way. Elahalicha emitit. You have to really move your whole being. Moving really is incomparable. Let's say the difference between learning Torah and learning in the university, or learning Torah in the university. So you learn Torah in the university. Every day you learn Torah. It's like adding on, learning, Chinese literature or, the English literature. Every day you add on more knowledge. It doesn't change you. It doesn't change you. It changes your, I say your knowledge. Your knowledge, once in a while, you see a little idea over there. It's not good to lose your temper or something like that. You can change yourself a little bit, rearrange yourself a little bit. But when you learn the Torah, it's not so, because the Torah is not just the wisdom of, of some great author or some great philosopher. The Torah is the wisdom of God. And when you learn the Torah, it's supposed to change you. So let's say a child learns in school and he learns the Aleph base, and then he starts learning. That's why, by the way, in religious Jews, I think all of them, when they learn the Torah, usually Jews at the age of 3, they already know how to read. In Jewish education, they know how to read. They started teaching them the letters of the Torah. It says when they learn the Torah, they don't learn the words. The words are not the important thing. The important thing are the letters of the Torah. The fact that God could just say letters, even if they made no sense, that is a big miracle. That's the essence of the Torah. That God could reveal himself in letters, even if the letters were a big jumble. It was all just mumbo jumbo, and we had to figure it out. It could be the Torah would be more popular if it was like that, because that's more godly and all that. Okay. So the same thing with the children. The letters are the holy things. The holiness of the Torah comes from the letters of the Torah. And then with that in mind, that every letter I read is holy, and that I have absolutely no idea what holy is, what God is, but I know he creates me, he gives life, he gave us the Torah, he took us out of Egypt. So little by little, you start to incorporate that, not just in your general life, but also in your understanding. You start to understand what's being read. And you understand what's being read with the, how do you say, the axiom, what is it, the hanacha? with a basic principle in mind that what I'm reading, this is holy. This is God's words. So even the simple stories about Abraham or Abraham's wives or Abraham's, right, Esav and his wives and who they were, right? All these seemingly mundane stories, all the generations from Adam, the names of everybody from Adam until Noah, and then the generations from the who do I care, right? The guy's name was Arpachshad, and his name was Shelach, and was Bolach. Who cares? Right? Who these people are dead? Nobody even knows where they're buried. Nobody does it. No, this is what God is saying. You don't understand it. That's par for the course. The big miracle is that we can understand anything. So that becomes an additional miracle. And when you learn the Torah, then that starts to change you. You start to change you. Of course, you can't be thinking about that all the time, when you read the Torah, but it has to be a general, how do you say, given. The basis of learning the Torah is this. So therefore, when you're learning the Torah, it means that you should take it to heart and learn incomparably to what was yesterday. Did you go totally out of what you were, even if you were a holy person before? Right, including all the novel ideas you had before. Cain also, the malach machshava, the thoughts that you had before, the whole way you used to think, the way you stood, you become a different person. That's what God said to Abraham. Go from your land, from your place of birth, from the place where you used to live, to the land I show you. What's the real? And then that's the idea of Moshiach. You realize who your essence is. You realize who you are, your essence. Your essence is an amazing connection to the creator of the universe. It called alicha shalom. All of the moving that Abraham made, calls kochotav hanelamim, even the highest, even concealed powers of the soul will be revealed. Al derech zeh b'kochot atzmam. Lo rak giloi zayin midot, not just the revelation of the 7 emotions and the intellect, which is elagam mochin, even etzem. Essence, awareness of reality. This is the whole idea of lech lecha me'artzecha me'moladecha. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing in anything. If you're into music, I mean, I really like music, so I listen sometimes to different music. You see, there are these composers that are just out of the world. I mean, you can't imagine how did they write this stuff? How did they get brand new, ideas to write this? And there's some of them are like really prolific. I'm not going to push any particular composers. And then there's the performers, right? The performers, some are just amazing. See how they play, just how their fingers move. It's just right. It's just they're not normal. It's not like everybody else. And then you have like people that play in competitions, right? Like the Chopin competitions, and they play. The one guy stands out. Everybody plays. They're all fantastic. They don't make any mistakes. One person just this is something completely different. And this person compared to the people, so you can see that's what's called genius. Genius. And every Jew has a genius for understanding God. Every Jew, genius, above understanding. This miraculous talent every Jew has. Where do you get it from? Who knows? It's just a gift. It says, that's the service in a normal way. This is a genius which is inside of every Jew, which is usually not used in a normal way. When a Jew does Torah, he does commandments, he does whatever it is, then he does not use his who al yedei nitzel. I'm sorry, avodat adam al gil. Usually, a person when he usually serves God is by means of using your revealed powers, who you are. There's no novelty in that. Shari elu heim kochos. These are the powers and abilities that he has. And he knows that he's got them. He's got a talent for learning. He has a talent for music. He has a talent for this. Moving, so it's understood. So you have to use your talents to their ability. In sports, we see this all the time. Similarly, is also what's called hidden powers. Your connection to God. Until I'm sorry, but there's also different levels of concealed powers that you have: love of God, awe of God, fear of God, belief in God. Right? These powers are hidden. And in these, there's also different levels. There's concealed powers which are close to being revealed. That's not so it's so novel. Hachirish Amiti, the true novelty of Judaism is kashiru megale betocho, when a person reveals within himself, like with Abraham, otcha ba'atzmacha kochot ne'elamim, his concealed powers that he didn't even know he had. She'af echad, that no one, lo yadav lo shi'er, did not know or could not even estimate that he had this connection to God. Jews that were not religious, they're willing to give their lives in the what was the Inquisition, right? Jews that they looked on the surface to be like, the Catholics or whatever they were, and they were willing to, to do whatever it is, to go to church and bow down to idols. And all of a sudden, when it came down to, they said, okay, now change your religion or we'll kill you. They should have said, okay, no problem. What's the problem? No, they said, Shema Yisrael, burn me at the stake. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. The whole time I was in the church, I was saying Shema Yisrael. I was not really bowing. Whatever they did, suddenly when it comes to the essence of the soul, he's willing to give his life. Ad she mitpalim menayin lo higiu. Where did I get these powers? Where did I get these abilities? When he uses these things, I remembered I learned when I started learning Torah, and this was like 50 years. I wasn't always religious, so when I started, I learned in a yeshiva which was called Hadara Torah. That was maybe the first, if not the first, yeshiva for Baal Tshuvas in the world. And there came all sorts of people. And I remember one guy came, and he was, a big sort of a fellow, a lumpy sort of a guy, and he looked like sort of a goofy sort of a fellow, he doesn't know this. And that's it. I learned there. And then after like 4 years, I came to Israel, I got married. Anyway, once in a while, I would go back especially when I went to the Rebbe. So I would go to the head of the yeshiva there, and I would ask him, what about this guy? What about this? And I asked him, what about this fellow? He said, oh, he became a big genius. He became a big rabbi in a whole community. He was just fantastic. People would call all over and ask him questions from the big rabbis and everything. Just nobody knew he had these powers. Nobody knew he had them. He himself didn't know. He just read in the Torah. All of a sudden, it just clicked. He remembered everything he learned. He understood everything. So we have hidden powers of love of God, hidden powers of loving your fellow man. Right? Sometimes you can find people who are just so selfish, and all of a sudden, just one time you find, no, this guy, he's helping people and he's visiting people and he's something inside just changes. And that's especially comes from learning the Torah. Just like this is relevant to learning the Torah deeper and more wider and more personal, also it is in regarding to all the service of Judaism, especially spreading Torah, making a lot of pupils. Therefore, you should also gather groups of children on Shabbat or groups of people on Shabbat. That should be a way and teach them in a way that they'll enjoy the Torah and want to learn more of the Torah because it's God's word. Kolomar, in other words, in addition to understanding simply what the Torah says, Sha'alav Tamid Lahosif, that you always have to increase in number, in quantity, and in quality of the pupils. It's not, you shouldn't be suffice with this just to add on more pupils. Don't never be satisfied with what you did up to now. A few in Kabaramidu Talmidim Har, but even if you made a lot of pupils up to now, 1,000 pupils, Hari calls them on all the time, that you have the possibility, Lagia, to reach more and more Jews, until all the different types of Jews, which I think there's as many types of Jews there are in Israel as there are Jews. Every Jew is another type, right? Really, if you look and see like all the Hasidic bells, all the Hasidic gur, all the Litvish Jews, they're all the same, right? You start to talk to them, you realize each one is totally different. Each Buddhist is a whole different world. They say the same things as all of them on the surface, but when you start to talk to them, suddenly you realize that each one is a totally different person, right? With totally different abilities and goals and talents and qualities. Shishtatfu b'shir Torah, that you get all the different types of Jews to learn the Torah. And if you realize you can do it, then you have to do it. Kapashut. Simply. And especially the Talmid Mosifim, you also have to add on learning the Torah, teaching the Torah, and also more bar mitzvot, banot mitzvot, chadashim. But in Kfar Chabad, it used to be, maybe they'll start it again. They used to, for the war orphans, He used to make a huge bar mitzvah for the war orphans. This was like after the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War. There were a lot of war orphans, right? Because the soldiers who got killed, they were young men, and a lot of them were married, and a lot of them had children, and the children grew up without their fathers. And they made a huge bar mitzvah every year. They invited all sorts of dignitaries, and they gave every child tefillin, and the children were very happy. And they spoke with the chief of staff of the army, and a lot of times the prime minister would come. That they should try to get Jews to come to a Torah class. Alderach says similarly regarding in not just the quantity, but also the quality. You should understand the things better. You should understand things more deeply. That's what all the commentaries are on the Talmud. Until you find new ideas. Talmud Vatik, until finally you read. One second. It says even the expert pupil will find new ideas in the Torah. This is nothing novel. What the Rebbe says, what I'm saying now is nothing novel. Why? Because every Jew already has an obligation to increase learning Torah. And when you do so, you'll find that this has implications and meaning you never dreamed of. You never dreamed of. Suddenly it connects to your soul. This is when you're really moving truly, this is when you learn the new ideas in the Torah come from your hidden powers. Your hidden powers. All of a sudden, new ideas pop in your mind. You have a question. Oh, I got an idea. Maybe it's like this. You talk to your friends. Hey, that's a nice idea. Why? I never thought of that. Right. This is like we said before. That the litmus test of all these things is who lo hu atzmo, not himself, and that because of his working, he's working and occupied in other commandment. So therefore, obigalal ahavat atzmo, because he loves himself, as it could be, maybe he'll make a mistake, right? You learn Torah, you come to a mistake in your ideas, you get new ideas. Take your ideas to other people and ask them if it's right. You have new ideas in the Torah, wonderful, it's a good thing. To ask other people about it and see if they agree with these ideas. I know people, there's a friend that I say, he says, I got a question on the Torah. Why does it say like this and that? So I think the answer is, you say, one second, Rashi asked that question and he gives an answer. I didn't see that. I said, okay. There's a joke about that. They say that a rabbi was standing in front of the congregation and he's in Breshit in the beginning. And it says, I have a question. The rabbi says to the congregation, I have a question that none of the commentaries on the Torah have even dealt with this question. No one seems to know the answer to this question. You're the first people I've talked to about it, but I've looked at all of the commentaries. No one even deals with it. It says in the Torah, Breshit bor Elokim et hashamayim ve'et ha'oretz. The first time it says et is written with an aleph. The second time it says et is written with an ayin, and no one explained. One little child raises his hand and he says, but Rabbi, the first time it says et hashamayim was with an aleph, and the second time it says et hashamayim was also with an aleph. Both of them are with an aleph. So the rabbi said, oh, another question in the Torah. Another question. In other words, you have questions, it's a good thing, but you have to check to see if your questions are okay. And secondly, you have to see if your answers are an answer. Right? Like I've said before, many times, and I shouldn't have said it at all, I shouldn't have had to say it, but all of Christianity is based on wrong answers in the Torah. Right? You read the Torah, you get a question, oh, I know what the answer is. And they come up with some totally wrong answer. They say, we must all, I believe this is a genius, right? This is a genius answer. Total misinterpretations of the Torah. It's not a bad thing to misinterpret the Torah. Not a bad thing. But to take it seriously is, right? Take it seriously. You're supposed to learn the Torah, come up with any interpretation that you want to, is okay. Any you want to. But go to a rabbi and ask him if this is good. And if he says it's terrible, it just doesn't make any sense what you're saying, you have to accept it. You have to accept it. But to make new ideas is very important. Right? Until you can finally come to, right? feel the life of the Torah. That's what Abraham did. Lech lecha. Alpia, what we said before, that our generation, especially our generation, is the last generation of exile, and it's the first generation of the redemption. So we are found a special emphasis in Lech lecha, going from your land to the land that I will show you. As the Rebbe said, the land I will show you is the complete land of Israel. תצלצל עוד רבע שעה, אני אעשו פה משהו, רבע שעה. The Kenyan call Eser Arzo. This is, in other words, receiving all of the 10 lands that God promised to Abraham. Hare, behold, move and it's understood. Shadavar tzarich lishtakef. It has to be revealed, first of all, in your service, a Jew's service of God. Namely, that you do what Abraham did and you keep moving until you bring Moshiach. Al Yadeshu Mosif Balimud, first of all, add on learning Torah, not just according to your intellect, how it is now, but in your intellect in its essence. In other words, your intellect, how it is attached to God, how you understand it, how you're at level. And suddenly you start to realize that God is infinitely more real and close and distant at the same time than you could possibly imagine. Shazem Yuchad, that this is especially by means of adding learning in the inside of the Torah. That's why I'm giving all these classes, right? So that everyone, as many people as possible, will at least be exposed to the ideas of Chassidut, the inside of the Torah, the soul of the Torah. Especially these ideas which are more intellectual. There's ideas which are not relevant to deed, just understanding God, understanding the upper worlds, etc., how God creates the world of Atzilut and how he makes the Tzimtzum, things which are apparently not relevant to us, but they are relevant to understanding God, how great God is, how infinite God is. God not only creates the sea and the skies, and he also creates all the angels. The angels are also like nothing. God creates all the worlds above the angels. And that there's worlds and worlds and worlds, you start to realize that the greatness of God is something so incomprehensible and so real, right, that it comes to including ideas of, in Chassidut, the ideas of what Moshiach is going to bring in the world. Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Sha'al Yedei Hosafa, by means of adding on, in Lech Lecha, in moving, constantly learning more Torah, doing more. Now, the Rebbe is speaking to the Jewish people, but of course, this is relevant to non-Jews as well in ideas of doing good and the 7 Noahide commandments, which I don't know if everybody knows what the 7 Noahide commandments are, but you can look it up and see there's a lot of misinformation also, but there's also good information. Look up the Chabad site. Yakurim, take it from Yah, therefore should be immediately the Lech Lecha Me'artzecha, going from your land. What does it mean? Eventually what's going to be is gathering all of the scattered Jews from the 4 corners of the world. Holchim Kulam, all of them will go. Ela Eretz Asher Reka, to the land that I will give you. Again, this is the answer to all those people that say, God left the Jews, and there's a new definition of what a Jew is nowadays, and you have to believe in this. One of the essences of Judaism is that God is going to gather all the Jews from the 4 corners of the world. How are you going to know who's a Jew? Well, anybody who says he's a Jew is going to come to Israel. They're all going to come there. The Jews, the non-Jews are not going to come to the land of Israel. How are you going to know who's a Jew, who's a non-Jew? Who decides? So the answer is the Torah decides. The Torah has a clear definition of what a Jew is. A lot of times you have to have somebody who's a very holy person, namely the Moshiach, to reveal who exactly goes according to the Torah criteria. There's a lot of people that think they're Jewish and that they're not. Right? Their mother's mother, like 6 generations ago, converted not according to Torah law. So that means that all of the children, no matter how Jewish they think they are, they're not Jewish. Then there's people who are totally far from Jews. They don't even know they're Jews. They have no connection whatsoever to the Jews, right? His father was the Pope, and his mother was who knows what, the queen of the church, whatever you got over there, right? And all of a sudden you realize, no, it's not so. Your great grandmother, she was Jewish on your mother's side, and your mother was Jewish. It doesn't make any difference what they think they are. They're Jews. So the Torah definition of a Jew defines what a Jew is. And when that's awakened inside of a Jew, suddenly thinks, I'm a Jew. I want to do what God wants. One of the things that God wants is to listen to what Moshiach says. And Moshiach is going to bring all of the Jews to the land of Israel. Why? Because the land of Israel is where the Holy Temple is going to be. And Moshiach is going to build it. And that's what it says, that it will come to the complete land of Israel, all 10 nations, Kolel, including the Keni and the Kenizi and the Kadmoni. That's the 3 additional lands that God promised to Abraham that we have not settled yet, we have not conquered yet. But those 3 lands we're not going to receive by means of war. We're going to receive in a way of peace from the non-Jews around us. Together with this, yesh at the shlemos of kol esher kochot nefesh, all of the other 7 powers of the soul. A very interesting thing now is going on, by the way. I don't know if you know it. At least I don't know if I know it also, but at least that's what it says in the news. That, okay, so let's say, so to speak, we've given God for free Palestine, and now Hamas is ruling Palestine. That's it, right? Trump made a deal. What's the first thing that Hamas is doing? Killing people. They take people out on the streets and they shoot them. Anybody who they think are against them, they shoot them. They shoot them, they kill them, right? One by one. They line them up in public because they want everybody to see that that's a real leader. That's a leader that cares about his people, is that he kills everybody that doesn't agree with him. No, after you finish killing people, what do you do then? What are you supposed to do then? What do you mean? We dig tunnels so that we can attack the Jews. If the non-Jews are given a choice to be ruled by the Hamas or by the whatever is the Islamic Brotherhood or whatever these crazy things are called, by Boko Raton, no, Boko Haram. These things, they'll say, hey, we don't want to be ruled by these animals. These people are scorpions. They're worse than scorpions, right? All they do is bad. All they do is evil. They have nothing whatsoever they've ever done good. Who wants to rule? Who wants to be ruled by those people? Who wants to be ruled? So all of the nations of the world, if given a chance, they'll say, hey, we want to be ruled by Israel. And the Jewish people will say, I'm sorry, we can't rule the whole world. Abraham only promised 3 more lands to us. That we're willing to rule. Oh, everybody's going to be happy. This is wonderful. We have normal leaders. Why? Because the world will be filled with the awareness of God like water fills the ocean. The Gam also, and Ba'umat Olam, also the non-Jews. Lo ye'esekol olam, Maimonides says, the Rambam says, that the whole entire world, all of humanity, all 9 billion people, who knows if there's 9 billion, if there's 20 billion, right? How many people are living in forests and mountains and nobody ever counts them? And whatever the number is the whole world will only be interested in one thing, not personal survival. God is keeping everybody alive. Not making money. God gives everybody money. You don't have to worry about it. For what? Only to know God. Only to know God. Then God will have the rulership. The Alter says also in the whole world. Domim Sameachai. Not only the Jews, not only the non-Jews, human beings, but also even more. All the animals, like it was in Noah's Ark. All the trees, all of the ground. Everything will reveal the Creator in the creation. Ad she'even mikir titzak, it says that stones from the walls will cry out. Al dezeh te'ena, also a fig. Figs, a tzomeach. I just want to tell a small story. I'm a very big fan of Professor Viktor Frankl. I've read what I think are all of his books in English. I don't know, maybe he has more books, but at least what I could get my hands on in English. So he has one story that every time I read it, I cry. I just think it's such a beautiful story. And the story is that I don't know if this was in the Holocaust or immediately after the Holocaust. I think that it was in the middle of the Holocaust. In any case, there was a woman and she was bedridden. And she was laying on her bed. And she was terminal. Whatever disease she had, she was terminal. And she was, anyway, so he visited all the patients and he said, how are you today? And the woman said, oh, I'm doing very well. I have a friend. I found a friend. He said, oh, that's really very nice. Who is your friend? Who came to visit you? He said, that tree outside of her window, there was a tree with some leaves on it. And he said, it's your friend? Do you talk to? He says, yes, I do. I talk to a friend. I have a friend to talk to. He says, does the tree talk back to you? He said, I thought that the woman was hallucinating. He said, does the tree talk back to you? She said, oh, yes, he's my friend. So, well, what does the tree say? So the tree says, I am here. I am life. And that the whole world screams out that a message, I am life. God is good. Every plant, every animal, every rock. How much more so every human being. Like it says, Yodea kol po'o ki ata pa'alta. We see in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. The Yavin kol yatzur ki ata yatzarta. Everything formed will know, God, that you formed it. And everything that has a soul in its nostrils, the whole entire world will become a dwelling for the creator of the universe. Also in the world's Bria Yetzir Nasiya, there's made the revelation of the world of Atzilut. There's Etzel of Asomach, godliness. It's like people who understand music, right? So they flock to hear a great pianist or a great violinist, right? They're willing to stand in line the whole entire night and pay, $100, $200, $300 for a ticket just to get in and hear this person play this beautiful music. I mean, I don't know, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I mean, music, you can turn on the radio, listen to music. He says, no, this is something else. This is just, right? You get pleasure from, and what do you get? I mean, what's there? Just a bunch of sounds in your ears. You can't, like, you go outside, you can't, unless you've made a recording of it. But beauty and harmony is inexplainable, right? All these Greek philosophers made a big deal about this. And that's just a little tiny example of what godliness is, of what beauty is, of what harmony is, of what love is. The whole world will just be filled with this, but what's it going to do with us? We're not going to sit back and listen just like in a concert. We're going to participate. It's going to reveal that each one of us is also infinitely good. And that's going to make us move like Abraham. We'll feel more and more obligation. Moshiach comes, is going to activate the whole world. From the Lech Lecha, from this Lech Lecha, we're going to come to next week's Torah portion from walking, Vayera Hashem, that God reveals himself to us. That's next week's Torah portion. Shleimuta, the completion of the future redemption. Vayu, like it says, your eyes will see God. Neshamat begufim, souls in bodies, ultimately healthy and complete. And the main thing is that it should happen immediately, all because of our attitude and our work of moving constantly, not thinking about ourselves, as God is going to, yes, start thinking about us in a revealed way. And all of the Jews are going to wake up, come, the holy temple will be built, come to the land of Israel, and the whole world will all of a sudden fit into place, and the whole world will be healthy and happy and blessed. Okay, ready, wonderful. Now let us learn Yom Yom.